Hey, everybody, hope you all are doing well and welcome back to Michael's Matters. Now, of course, if you are guessing, I am Michael. And this week, we got a lot of insight about where President Joe Biden's head is at on what needs to be done to strengthen the country's major retirement safety net programs in his 2024 $6.8 trillion presidential budget proposal. This proposed budget includes increasing taxes for the wealthy to shore up some of the, well, I guess we'll call them financial shortfalls of really the most important pillars of American retirement. So things like Medicare and Social Security and the programs that fall under it. So like Social Security Retirement, Social Security Disability SSDI, Supplemental Security Income SSI, and VA and Railroad Retirement Benefits. This new budget is meant to ensure that these 69 million Americans who are currently on Social Security or Medicare or both to be assured that these programs, well, they're going to last into the foreseeable future. So today we are talking about what is in President Biden's budget, how it proposed to fix Medicare and Social Security, if these changes could actually achieve those goals, and of course, if the budget is actually going to ever really truly be implemented. Now, this is Michael's Matters, and before we get to it, if you like these videos, if you find them interesting, if you find them helpful, or hey, you know what, if you find them useful, please don't forget to like and subscribe. That way, you can get updates when our newest and most informative videos become available. Now, let's get down to the video. So let's get today started with the big splash that President Biden made this week with the release of his 2024 presidential budget. Because in his budget, he sent a clear message to the nation and to Republicans, and specifically the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, who are currently locked in a debt ceiling and spending fight, that President Biden does not intend to back down from a fight, especially on core retirement and pension safety net programs like Medicare and Social Security and Medicaid. In his $6.8 trillion budget, there are a variety of proposed changes that would, at least according to the White House, decrease the budget deficit by $3 trillion over the next 10 years. Now, the main methodology for doing this in the president's budget is not to cut the costs in programs like Social Security and Medicare, like many Republican members of Congress are demanding, particularly right now as we see the projected federal deficit grow pretty much exponentially after the pandemic. But rather, the president's budget leans in hard on tax increases on corporations and wealthier Americans, and of course, the millionaires and the billionaires. Specifically, it would impose a 25% minimum tax on billionaires, increase the corporate tax rate from its current 21% to 28%, and quadruple the corporate tax rate on stock buybacks, which are currently at 1%, but under the proposed budget, it would move those up to 4%. Oh, and also, it would eliminate carried interest. Ultimately, according to the White House projections, these changes would increase the nation's tax revenue by $5 trillion. Furthermore, it would boost the existing tax revenue collection by closing tax loopholes and fortifying the IRS with a bigger budget to do enforcement on the existing tax code. Some of this new money that could be gained by these proposed changes would then get funneled into the now struggling retirement programs like Medicare and Social Security. All right, so let's get into what exactly the budget has in store for both the increasingly shaky Social Security program and the in real danger Medicare program. These two programs specifically have taken center stage in the current debt ceiling fight between the GOP and the White House and congressional Democrats. Because as two of the largest and the most expensive programs that are both on unsolid ground and coming up to a fiscal cliff, they are really also the most vulnerable to cuts and also the most ripe for it as well, at least from the perspective of Republicans and budget hawks. In the proposed budget, President Biden would hope to find additional funding for the Medicare program, which is itself almost in a terminal state. And even the Medicare Trust Fund, in their most recent report, indicates that by 2028, it is likely that Medicare Part A portion would be unable to pay out its obligation. Medicare Part A is the part of the coverage that pays for the costs for hospitalization and major medical care. By 2028, though, if nothing is changed, nearly 90% of the benefits covered by Medicare Part A would be unpayable, at least according to them. This would leave seniors having to pay basically millions and millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, out of their pockets for medical care every single year. Now, to specifically generate money for the Medicare program, President Biden's proposed budget would direct Medicare to expand an existing drug negotiation provision that would allow Medicare to further expand its ability to negotiate prices on a wider swath of medications, allowing it to use its massive purchasing power to force pharmaceutical companies to give them essentially discounts and pass those on to Medicare. The White House estimates that this change alone would save around $200 billion for the Medicare program over the next 10 years. And that additional savings would be put back into the Medicare Trust Fund to increase its longevity. Furthermore, the proposal would implement an increased and expanded tax on Americans who are earning more than $400,000 a year. It would raise the current tax amount from 3.8%, like it is right now, up to 5%, and then apply it to both earned income, like what folks get when they get their paychecks, as well as to unearned income, which things like capital gains, ordinary dividends, taxable interest, pensions, annuities, etc. This, in theory, would expand Medicare's solvency, again, according to the Biden administration of the White House, for another 25 years, presumably after much of the baby boomer generation have exhausted their need for the usage of the Medicare program. Now, on the Social Security side, interestingly enough, and kind of disappointingly enough, there is a very noticeable hole as well as thinness on details in the proposal about what exactly would be done to give the Social Security program the boost it needs to keep paying out its full benefits into the future. Earlier this month, Senator Sanders from Vermont visited the White House and brought really the most liberal perspective to the table about what could be done, like raising Social Security tax and payroll tax on anyone who makes over $250,000 a year. That would be up from where it is right now at $160,000 a year. In this proposal specifically, there is a Biden version of that that echoes the spirit of Senator Sanders, but also doesn't violate the president's campaign promise to not raise taxes on anyone who makes less than $400,000 a year. So the payroll tax in President Biden's proposed budget actually just raises income above $400,000 a year. Also, additionally, there is a 25% wealth tax for households who have net worths over $100 million or more. Whew. We dodged that one, huh? And although there's no specific mention for how much or how long it would improve the longevity of the Social Security program if these changes were put in act, the one specific thing that is in the proposal that has a specific number is an additional $1.4 billion in funding for Social Security specifically to improve their services, like their phone banks and online assistance, and also in-person office assistance as well. So overall, there are a few real hard truths about President Biden's proposed fiscal budget for 2024. The first is that Republicans, well, they exist, and they are in control of one of the branches of Congress, the House specifically. This means that even if the proposal was to become a legislative initiative, well, the likelihood of it ever getting past a Republican Congress is basically zero, especially as they are already fighting over the debt ceiling and government spending. So that is the first thing. Second thing is that the president isn't responsible for making a budget. The president doesn't make budgets. For any other reason than as a statement of, his legislative goals and a perspective on where the country they believe should be going. So it would mean that this budget would have to be drafted by members of Congress who do actually have to set the budget, and it would have to be passed by them. So at the moment, given the makeup of the current Congress, Republicans, they would definitely say this budget does too little to draw back government spending and goes too far on increased taxes. While Democrats, they would probably say the opposite. They would say, you know what, this doesn't go too far enough in increasing taxes. But what it does do is give Congress a perspective on what the president hopes to achieve, and also what would need to be put in a budget to get him to sign off on it and throw his support behind it. So it is good that he's continuing to bring up these super important programs like Medicare and Social Security and how potentially they could be fixed. But the down and dirty business of congressional budget making and passing, that's going to have to be left Congress. All right, so that's it for today's Michael's Matters, and I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, if you found it interesting, if you found it helpful, if you found it useful, please don't forget to like and subscribe. That way you can get updates when our newest and most informative videos become available. So for Michael's Matters, I'm Michael, hoping that you take care of yourself, take care of others, and have a happy, healthy